And Chad, God bless him, watched all the movies of Kurosawa. God, he's taken all that big movies and tried to incorporate it into a vision of his own with the help by a great cameraman, Dan Loudston. But I would say now lighting has taken over to such a ridiculous degree in movies. It's like, Jesus Christ, there's guys on the set twiddling knobs in the corner. Focus people no longer do anything. It's all done from their own chair and their own thing. It's like, on this show, John Wick 4, we had 35 lighting trucks in Paris. It's like so where do we sit? Excuse me, where do we sit? Over there.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Ian McShane is an actor. He sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your process when you get a new character? Like, do you have a typical road that you always go down to kind of wrap your arms around this new person?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I did 2 years of, as I say, classical training at drama school at ROD. I left early to do a movie. I left a term early to do The Wild and Willing, first movie I ever made, which was, I always call, it would be like the rank organizations attempted the new wave. Didn't quite work.
Yeah.
No, it's like, I've done that before. It's like I did, we did a show for TV called Kings, which was when the network said, we want
show.
It's a great show, but they said, we want a cable show for TV. And you do it and you say,
didn't work.
No, you don't, because you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to do it.
Yeah. But I thought it was going to be
there was
that.
some brave shit in that.
Yeah.
There was some really good stuff and interesting stuff.
Yes.
And some very good actors. Sebastian, who I love, Sebastian Stan, is now going on to be a lot of bigger things. But he was very gifted, Sebastian. We had a great relationship. But no, when you start, but characters, I don't know. And also, it's that English thing of, it's never like your career trajectory was never, Lord, no, I planned it this way. I planned this. It was never planned. It was always like, remember my first job was, as I said, a movie, and then I went and did a stage play in an arts theatre about a small, off Broadway. I went and did a play there, a very provocative new play. Then I did a live TV show playing a rock and roller on TV. Live, it was literally live. Those days you had they tape it. Well, it was like an hour show, an hour and 15 minutes. So you had basically it was a live show,
Yeah.
But that prepares you for everything.
Yeah.
And you go back and but it wasn't like saying, but my preference has always been, I think, I love the movies, whether it be TV specials like Deadwood or something, but the movies have always been something else. And when you work on a movie like Sexy Beast, when you've got a director, you go, he knows what he's doing, He knows. You can always tell. Or when you, like with Chad Stahalski is a student of cinema in his own way. Chad, I have enormous respect for the way that he's built this franchise in communication and in conversation and in development with the writers and Keanu, because there is a sort of a flow to the series. There is a kind of sometimes that it encompasses this enormous movie world, which it has to. You have to, make it bigger and bigger. But they've tried to do it, and I think, a film like this, which brings in a female demographic, which is, looking at it, which it is, it's a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
It really is, and in a good one. You want to make them as attractive and as real a film as possible, to invite people who just don't go, they just blow up things,
Right.
There is an element, within that of like my relationship with Keanu. My relationship as Winston.
Yeah.
It started off, Chad, it was in New York. The advisors to, do this. I got the script, independent movie. I read it, and I like with a film called Sexy Beast. I read it and I thought, they do this right. They direct it right. It'll be a terrific little movie, terrific, not little movie, but you call it that in comparison with look, you think it'll be a terrific movie to watch, And, luckily enough, like on Sexy Beast, a terrific director, Jonathan made that material, Glazer, who's the one who's gone on to other things,
Yeah.
But Jonathan's a specific guy, but he made a terrific movie because he did the script. he made the script. He didn't, I remember at one point he tried cutting it in a different way, but good scripts have a way of,
You almost have to get out of the way of it.
get out of the way. As a director, you do it, whatever. And when we did this, Chad, I didn't realize he had that, and he got some, very good actors in it. Rob Butman, Nyquist and Willem Dafoe. People who saw something in that script, and he directed it economically and beautifully. And I think Keanu's affiliation with that role, giving, a person like Keanu who has a very sort of, not so much then, but it continued with the sort of the social media appraisal of him, which is of a good guy, a loner, a sensitive soul. It vibed with that movie, the fact that he had a dead wife.
Yeah.
And then they stole his car, they killed his dog. He is actually the person that could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not be arrested. No, he really is. Because he has that. Yes. It's you think there must be a reason why he did that.
And that's all you need, right? To keep something going. A strong motivation, and then you have the audience right with you.
Well, that's what and in this, you've got Anna, which, as I said, bring that. But again, when we did the original movie, and I remember reading a script at one point which had an opening sequence in it, which is now in the movie. But when we did the movie, we didn't shoot that opening sequence. It was changing. And then when they reviewed the film a year later, Len did a very good job. He didn't come in and direct like, this is my movie. He directed it within, putting his own stamp on the movie. But it missed, they went back and they said, we want to do some new shoots. Films always do that. Your guy Kubrick, But he don't, it's like that. When you're as committed as that, and you wanted to continue the franchise and make it as real as possible, and bringing somebody in it, not just for the sake of, the commercialism of it, but giving that opening scene and that opening sequence whereby I have a relationship with a girl, gives an emotional heft to the movie when you meet later on, and gives her character, again, the audience vibes with her and thinks, she's an abused child. So the audience is invested in her character from the beginning instead of just somebody who kicks ass.
Exactly. Suddenly. And do you look for stuff like this? Almost like dramaturgically. Do you look and say, all right, let me see if this makes sense dramatically? Instead of just looking at your character, I'm talking about when you're deciding if you want to do something.
Well, sometimes every job has your reason for doing it. As Billy, there was that wonderful. I can call that wonderful Volker Schlondorf documentary on Billy Wilder in German. When the first question he asks is, why did, the project? And Billy Wilder says, the check. Because it's just like, what the hell are we talking here? Dickens wrote articles. Everybody, what are we doing here? Oh, I must make my art. Well, art comes out of something. It's the old line, I can't define art, but I know it when I see it.
Yes.
Whether it's this kind of an independent movie or a big movie, everything has its, resonance to the audience.
Yes.
So it's the reasons you do things. I read this, it was like, they said, like, come to New York and we'll, give you great hotel for a few days, not the usual fee, but and then it's Thanksgiving and whatever. Yeah. It was great. But also, I wouldn't have done it just for that. The script had something. Also,
But that matters, is what you're saying. That matters too, though. Like, Like, it's not just about,
No, you try to make everything better. Even doing a film like, when for serious, if you want to go back and talk about shows like, films you've done the last few years. This is an example of, there's a group behind it that care about the movie, care about what they're doing, not just putting it out, which is Chad, Keanu, Basil and Eric, who've been the producers since the beginning, the writers, Shay and Michael, who took over from Derek, because I think Derek was like up to two. It's difficult to keep going with the ideas, they brought him, but he's there as a constant the whole time. And, so there is some kind of thought behind it, and of the world, build the world of the characters. So there is a kind of realism in it, bringing in the Bowery King, which is a genius idea, which you can also, of course, you can have a film about the Bowery King now, or bringing in the last one you brought in the Chinese character, Kane.
Yeah.
So now they're probably going to do a spin-off of that, but. Within it, my relationship with Keanu has always been I think, Winston is like the Wick whisperer. If you call it the keeper of secrets. Who is he? Do you know what he is? I mean, when we talked I don't get involved at the beginning at all. They make their movie and then they come to it and they send the script in or whatever. I mean, we're going to do number 3. I mean, in between, Keanu and I are friends and we have coffee now and again or whatever. But we don't talk about John Wick the whole time.
Yeah.
But when John Wick comes up and then the script is, finally comes in and then the scenes and then we sit down and chat and go through it and whatever and try and make it, because they tend to with me, because, you're an English actor, so they think you can handle a lot of dialogue. Sometimes you want to go, guys, please, can we just, we can compress this a little. But they're amenable to that. So that's my role within it, making it and finding a way of communicating. And it is, film, it's like somebody was talking the other day about, I mentioned it yesterday during a session with the junket, whatever, talking about Last of Shelia, a movie. And I said, they keep talking about doing that again. I said, it's a very interesting film. I said, but even at the time when we did it, which is 1971, I said, somebody should have told Stephen Sondheim, great writer that he is, that you don't finish a movie with a 50-minute exposition of the first hour and a half in a movie. Correct? You know what I mean? I mean, I knew that then. I thought, which is great. And now you're going to finish it with a tour on the yacht? I said, they've invested in all these characters and suddenly you got these guys, did that. You go, whoa. No, they sit blind and and they end up people sitting there going, what the
But people really love that movie. I mean, people really love that movie. It's come back. It's become a cult.
Oh, I know. It's a cult classic. It's like, but I'm speaking what's wrong with it. No, I mean, I'm not. I love it. I love a lot of it. It was a great time. And 15 weeks in the south of France. How can you say no to that? Chauffeur on 24 hours a day, food up the kazoo. I mean, having a wonderful time. And interesting, terrific actors in it.
That's
Joan.
Right. That's right.
What was the great, Joan Hackett. I loved it. I mean, really good actors at the time. Joan Hackett and Diane Cannon.
Richard Benjamin.
Coburn, who became a good friend, and Mason, who I made about 3 movies with.
Yeah.
And, so it was a really, directed by Herb.
And then it goes on to influence, it influenced, Knives Out, that movie, Knives Out.
Oh yeah, which I know is it.
Yeah,
I've not seen that. Well, he talks about that. Yeah. I'm not crazy about it.
I know.
I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, I think this. No, I mean, honestly, I mean, you're going to go. I mean, they're okay. It's all right, but I mean, not exactly.
Yeah.
They got a cast of, I mean, but Anna is a really good.
So good.
Miss Diarmas is a very talented and gifted and gorgeous. I mean, that's why we're pleased to, I don't, talk about this. She adds a lot to it. And also she was great in, it's like the Bond movie. We talked about that the other day when somebody said, you should have been more of you. And I said, no, one scene was perfect. You don't need more than one scene in a movie. I said, everybody goes, that girl, that Paloma, that character's. So now she gets her own movie as an alter. Yep. An alter being of Paloma to play this character.
You seem to like a lot of your co-stars, or are you just?
No. I tend to. Yeah. I work with a few assholes, but I'm not going to name them. I just don't consider them.
Is that because? Do you think that that's a real part of making things right for you, making that relationship work in real life? Do you know what I mean? Is that an important part?
I think when you want to go to work, the people you work with, I mean, there's an old saying about movies, it's like saying, you get together, and usually within, you can spot the asshole immediately. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't in 2 weeks, it might be you.
Yes, I love it.
That's the oldest line in the world, but
yeah.
But no, I mean, it helps. I mean, if you're going to work on a movie, and Keanu, for example, is working with an actor like him who is very dedicated and very, very wow. I mean, that scene at the end of John Wick 4, up the old, Église, the palace, the church. The church, the steps going all the way up, then going all the way. I mean, he asked for another take again. I said, it's like, and I remember it was freezing cold. We had 6 nights outside. Oh my God. Outside the church there. Eventually, they wanted to pay another night, and the rector of the church said, please go, no more. I can't stand you outside, but I don't care if you offer me 100,000, just go away, But he would, But I mean, it's like, yeah, because he wants it to be right. Just one more. So, you know, in a sense, that's a great thing. If your leading man says, I'll do one more take, you go, well, yeah, I'll be there with you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So it's a commitment to making it, to try and get it right. On the other hand, when film came in, like sometimes, especially sometimes on Deadwood, which was terrific show. I love working with David Milch. Most creative 3 years of your life, working in an atmosphere that is kind of like, it was like doing a stage play every day. I mean, in some ways, and like doing TV, it was a mixture of everything. He'd go off and rewrite and come back, and you'd have a couple of hours to learn a half. But it was a really, truly creative experience. But only because we were in a location where we could move around and we could do everything. You can't do that on film.
Right.
You know, you just haven't got the time. So much preparation as you can. But I know improvising. But I mean, but then they put multiple cameras on it, and then they go, well, we'll film it from this. Or some of the directors go, I'd say, excuse me, you don't know what you want from this? You just want us to repeat all this fucking dialogue again, so you have 9 million feet of digital film or whatever you've got that you can cut together. In other words, you don't have a fucking clue what you're doing.
Right. It doesn't matter what you have to go through, right?
No, I mean, sometimes you question, I mean, when you talk about, actors, directors are like when you finish closing a door 50 times, or like you think, well, maybe he read that Godard did that, 50, or that, or that, what do you call it? Kubrick did that, 50 takes just for the sake of it. I said, it all gets exaggerated. Like, I mean, I worked with Pinter a few times. I mean, Pinter didn't put pauses when he played his own plays. He didn't put pauses in.
Oh, really?
A lot of the time, no.
The famous
I remember
Pinter
the last time we did
pause.
Homecoming on Broadway, and Harold said, I called him the day before we opened, and he said, there's a few good jokes in there, have a good time. I mean, I've known him since the 60s. He knows, but sometimes it's put upon you. You get a reputation for it, which sometimes people don't want to deny. They go, oh, it's fine, they say that about me, that's... and you look at movies, and I love looking at, I mean, I love movies. I was thinking yesterday, I love talking about movies. I love watching. I grew up with them. My mum and dad took me from an early age. I didn't want to be, I mean, nothing about, my dad was a professional footballer.
Yeah, you didn't.
Manchester United. At school I had a great teacher who steered me in the direction, like, did a play and I read on. He said, you're going to do this. And then he came to my parents and said, I think your son's got talent for an actor and maybe we should, and I auditioned for RADA, but I wasn't, even when I went to drama school, it was like, oh, this is all new. All I knew was, I knew what I was doing. When I stepped on the stage or a film set, you had an innate sense of what was going on, and I was fascinated by it all, and work. And, and besides which, there's only two kinds of actors. There's only good ones and bad ones.
I guess that's true.
There's only good ones, some degrees of each.
That's right.
All this talk about whatever and what they go through, the process.
Right.
I mean, guys now, but it's, you get tired of talking to young actors who've done one movie and they start talking about their art, their craft.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said somewhere something that really scared me because it was way too true. You said, these people these days, they haven't lived a life enough to be able to do this work properly. It's about like living. You grew up with people that went to war. You know what I mean? You grew up with people, and then they become actors, and then they have all this life experience.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. When those people who I work with, I mean, I work with Mitchum, I work with Burton, I work with Jack Ward, and all these people who brought to screen wealth of their life.
Yeah,
and you see it in what they do.
Yep.
Whether you think they're actors or not of a certain kind, but I mean, working, and George C. Scott I work with, I love the great guy. I mean, they're also great guys, flawed. Yeah. Thank God, but unbelievable people, real human beings.
Yeah.
Who didn't spout off every day about, Mitchum used to tell, we'll be telling amazing funny stories in a chair. They call it, I'll be right back. Hold that thought. He'd go off and do his one and come up, no. I was in the truck on my way to, and he'd tell these hilarious stories because filming is, it's a long day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you don't want to stay in the position of whatever you're doing.
Yeah. But here's what I really want to know, because I was watching some Lovejoy last night on BritBox, which is one of my favorite streaming services. I could just put on Lovejoy, right?
That was my idea. I know.
And it's actually was making me upset watching it because how much time it took to set up things that they don't do these days on shows. This writing was so smart.
Well, it always starts with that,
Yeah.
I mean, we had good scripts, and we always made sure that, I'd go through them with the writers before we started, so we didn't get on the set and you were constantly scribbling and arguing with the other actor, or when actors come on the set and they go, now this scene won't work, you go, oh, fuck, here we go. 20 minutes, we could have talked about this last night. This is just, but no, we tried to cut that out, and directors, and then you'd get things like, and you were allowed to do things. I mean, because, there's often, and that's not the easiest genre of TV. I always wanted it, Lovejoy to be, I love the shows like Rockford Files.
Yes.
That was a basic, like an English, that kind of,
Yeah.
there's a morality to it. It's
Yes.
like the hero is, there's no sex in it, whatever. There's a relationship with the leading lady that you can't have sex. Otherwise it will kill the whole thing.
Right.
But there's a wit between them.
Yep.
Two, there's an attraction. And you always have the sidekicks, but you pick them well, or the characters, and you pick terrific actors to do that, and then you give them their own episodes. And when guest stars come in, you say, they go, what do you want? I said, yeah, you're the guest star. Come in and do your bit. That's why you're here. And we had some fantastic British actors in that. All old school, like Leslie Phillips, Lionel Jeffries, who've been in movies, so it adds to the richness of the characters.
And then you were so charming, your character, constantly charming. But you look at that, and then you look at Al in Deadwood. It's like two entirely different actors doing those two characters.
But that was a time when, I think it's sort of a year before, James Gandolfini had sort of said it because they'd been doing Sopranos, I think, for a couple of years by then. And he sort of set the template for and also and then I was doing Sexy Beast at the time, where playing the most evil character, if you like, Teddy Bass of the whole lot. Ray Winston, Ben Kingsley, great, but the real bad guy is Teddy Bass. Yes. He's the real bad guy. You don't want to get it.
Yeah.
I was talking to him the other day about Hollywood. We were saying, who is your character in Winston? I said, well, it's like Hollywood. I said, there's a man in Hollywood. I said, there was a man called Sidney Korshak. There should be a movie about him. Sidney Korshak was the fixer. He was Al Capone's consigliere in the 30s. He was the guy behind getting Al Pacino out of the MGM to play in the movie Godfather. He was the guy. He was like, he ran the Teamsters Union, advised. He was the fixer. He knew where, I know that he knew where bodies were buried. He knew secrets. But I said, and that kind of guy doesn't have to, he wants to remain in the shadows.
Yep. He doesn't have to be imposing.
Imposing. I said, that's why Al, we had a thing with directors, like, when they came, I remember once, like, I think, is the best example. We did a shot, and it was a scene on, in Deadwood, when he came to see Tim's character, Bullock, for the first time. He visited the house, Al, and we walked in, and I forgot the director or whatever, and it was like this big room. There's this big chair in the middle. He said, well, Avi, you'd come in and walk there. I said, and you'd sit in there. I said, oh, no, we wouldn't. I said, excuse me, do you mind if we, I said, he'd stand there and come in, and he'd be wait to ask. I said, he'd wait. I said, he doesn't impose himself that way. He knows his own worth. I said, like when he goes to see the woman, I said, he puts on what he considers, he puts a tie on, over his dirty underwear, whatever. But he actually has a sense of, like, he knows instinctively how to deal with people. Otherwise, he wouldn't be running this organization to begin with. People trust him. He also has a feeling for the lower classes where he came from. The lower classes mean like the big, Jesus said, give me your poor and your damned, whatever. It's like, he looks after, Doc, who's damaged from the war. He looks after Jerry Jewell, who's got crippled foot. They're his people. He doesn't show it because he yells at them, but that doesn't matter, but he loves them. But that's how a character's as ruthless as that. You gain something else with the character.
But what did you do with that director? Because that director was telling you to do something that you knew wasn't...
He was suggesting. I just said, no. No, I've been pretty ordinary all my life. I mean, I'm not going to start, cutting, as Lillian Hellman once said about politics. She said, I'm not going to, what was the great quote she made? Yeah, I'm not going to oh, I'm not going to cut my political cloth to suit today's fashion. That was it. Which is true. You don't.
Yeah.
If you brought up one way, it's like you go through.
Yeah.
So that, no, what he said, I said, or it was like saying, it's like when you see shows and you go, when you see actors do things,
I know.
or the directors insisted on things, you go, no.
Something doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right.
Doesn't feel right. And you work around that.
Yeah.
Mostly they let us, and David, and this was the thing, this was when we did that, we would actually just rehearse like it was a stage play, but there was none of that. I've never taken kindly to directors, but in like the old days, I remember doing a television show and you come in and the director would put his hand on your shoulder and say, would you get your fucking hands off me? Like saying, move over there to the camera. I know where the camera is. It's like, or actors that know about lenses. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It means you don't want to look dodgy in a shot. That's all it means.
Right.
It doesn't. If it's a good director, you don't ask about that. What lens are you using on this? Dialogue. I mean, there's a vision with it's horses for courses sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wait, this is what you said about playing Al. You act it by the scruff of its fucking throat. You take it and you wrangle that bastard right into the ground. With those speeches, you gotta be bold to get out there. I never went on the set with a script in my
no,
head.
this
sounds like ultimate confidence. Like
that's a long time since I said that. I really know. I really decided. It was like when we did the pilot with Walter Hill, who's a good friend of mine. He watched Morning. I just got a text from Walter. He's a lovely guy and smart as hell, and a terrific movie writer and director. I mean, talk about muscular movies. But when we did the pilot, it's like, Walter, we did the pilot and Walter's there and going, I remember we did this long bar scene. We rehearsed it and then Walter went, I think this is just a master. And he did it. And thank God for his balls, because most other directors I've worked with, those people, like sometimes they go, well, perhaps I'll need a close-up in the middle.
Yeah.
Fear.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'll need you go, no, go with it. What your vision is, you believe that, go with it.
Yeah.
And the actors love doing that. Lovejoy, we did that a few times with that. And that suits that kind of, drama that we had in Deadwood. I mean, Lovejoy is, if you like, is equally difficult because it's what you call comedy drama, which is a difficult genre to cut without, not going for the laughs every time. It's natural comedy coming out of an hour series. And we get director come in and we do the same thing, do a master and not go back and do close-ups. So, it's the group you're working with. I mean, and sometimes, actor, I mean, we were talking about this morning when somebody said, actors, method acting, whatever, which is, I often think, when I watch your Succession, Brian Cox is a friend of mine, talking to Brian, I mean, I probably would have wanted to kill Jeremy Strong,
Now,
not that he's a perfectly fine actor, but sometimes when you read about it, you go, you must be fucking joking. I mean, come on, give me a break here.
But why, though? Why? Just because it's interfering with your work? Is that what you're saying?
No, but then again, you go, everybody's got their own way of working.
Right.
But as long as it doesn't impinge on everything the whole
that's
time,
what
it
it
becomes
is.
that. Everybody, Laurence Olivier said to Dustin Hoffman, why don't you try acting instead of running around the block 15 times? Perfectly reasonable.
It doesn't matter, though. If he needed to get there like that, then he got to have to get there like that.
Sometimes you give it up, whatever. But it's like saying, sometimes it's irritating. We've all got but you're aiming towards a localized goal, which is to make the best product you can in a way.
And what works best for you on a set? Like what kind of environment is going to bring out the best?
Let me go back to that, if I may, Peter, say about when I went Deadwood and I got away from it by my enthusiasm for talking about this. The Deadwood was one show when we did the pilot and we finished it. And then there was a break of about, I think it was 6 months before we did the series. But when the series started and that speeches came through, I made a conscious decision. Like I thought, to never go on the set with a script, to learn it all, to have that, so you'd go out there and you'd set a sort of an example by what you were doing with the other actors, whatever. Not that they didn't have to have no script. No, nobody said, what are you doing with the script? But that kind of, so you were there, if you like, sort of the, and so there was a sort of a confidence that spreads out that you're there to do it. And, sometimes you fell flat on your ass, but that doesn't matter. But most times it was like, you get through the work quicker too, because there was more of a resonance which went round and everybody, and as I said, everybody in that show brought their A game every day in the sense that, if it was like being on a cliff and you just leapt off it.
Yeah.
With whatever you had to give because you were all there for the same reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, you keep giving credit to Milch, but I just want to say, it sounds like the words are born in you.
Thank you. But I mean, that's what you always try to achieve. That sort of, as if you're saying it for the first time. Always. But there's different ways that you approach it. And sometimes, like, like as I say, with over ornateness of dialogue, sometimes in Wick, I say, I can do that. I don't need this. All I need is the one word and a look, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what film can do. Other mediums can't do that. But film can convey that.
Yeah.
Without doing anything. Sometimes you don't need anything. Say, I don't need any dialogue here.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a movie, Journey into Fear, back in, when was it? Again, but it was working with some amazing actors. I remember it was a remake of the Wells movie. Oh, it's great. It was Sam Waterston, Yvette Mimieux, Vincent Price and me.
I got to see this.
Oh, it's in there. Yeah. Stanley Holloway, Shelley Winters.
Whoa.
The great. Now, I worked with one of the great method actors of all time, Joseph Wiseman, who gave maybe the first method performance on film in Detective Story with Kirk Douglas. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Him and Michael, the other guy, the two villains. Joseph was in them, and Joseph was, and Zero Mostel was in this. Mm-hmm. And Zero Mostel, I mean, but it's like working with people like that who were completely, was terrific. But I said when I did, the character was like Vincent Price and I were the villains, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I said, Vincent looked at me, and I like dialogue, and I said, I'd like to cut all my dialogue, make him a mute. And the director agreed with it. So I played it as this mute, so the Lithuanian accent, and Vincent, who was the most wonderful man, to work. I mean, amazing. Much underrated as an actor, too. I mean, really, that sort of, that ease and sort of stylishness and smart. But you learn from that, it's like working with Rex Harrison, working with Rexy when we did this wacko movie, Behind the Iron Mask in the 70s. And watching Rex, I'll never forget. We're standing there, and they're setting up the lights and talking. Rex, hello, and how are you, boy?
Yeah.
And at one point, he went, excuse me. Excuse me. And this guy turned around and went, he said, that's my light. Get the fuck out of it, okay? No, Ian. And just carried straight on talking. I thought, I said, because it's like, that's my light. Get the fuck out of it. Thank you. Bye-bye. So he'd been around for, these guys, But it's funny. I'm also film is like, you're there, and it's a social experiment. I mean, you're on a set with everybody.
And do you like that? Do you like that?
I love that. With old people around.
You don't need to be off by yourself somewhere?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, before you're there, but once you're out there doing it, because you've got to do it, haven't you?
Yeah.
In front of people. I mean, it's like they're watching it now. No. I mean, I don't know how I do with an intimacy coordinator or whatever they whatever they call themselves now. Whatever you do, or
well, you have that crazy story. Do you want to tell that story real quick about
which one?
What Milch said?
Oh yeah, absolutely, with Paula. Oh, that's with Paula Malcolmson when we came up. Oh, she plays my chief whore in Deadwood, who's shot a client. She shot one of her clients.
Yeah.
And I take her up in the room, and I think this is the pilot. Is this the pilot, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
And we're there, Walter, and we're talking about it, and we start, and we're sort of, it's the first, I think it's like the third day or something. And Walter's there, and David always came in, and everybody read through it. And Walter's, smart guy. I mean, he was there with David, and we're sort of starting to do it, and Milch suddenly looks up, and just as we're talking, he says, Excuse me, everybody. I think I got to say something. Yeah, Ian, you got to grab her cunt. And there was like this moment's pause, and Paula went, absolutely. Absolutely. I said, okay. But it was like, that was one of those moments that, I mean, that's not your first reaction as an actor to say, do you mind if I grab your cunt?
Right.
I mean, the actress could go, I said, what? This is nothing personal. This is in a purely professional capacity.
Yeah.
But it's not like the first thing you think of, you know, to do.
Right.
But it's like that, so that broke a lot of barriers for everybody. Immediately.
But isn't that interesting that she immediately said, yes.
Oh, she's a smart actress, that's why.
Right.
She's a great girl, you know, she's terrific. But she went, yeah, because she knew, I mean, also she knew that looking at me, much as we got on extremely well, I mean, she's a great friend of mine, but it's like saying, it's not the first thing you do.
Yeah.
You know, it really isn't. You know what I mean? Because it's not that kind of a movie.
Yes.
But it was a perfect sort of metaphor. The entire scene.
If somebody is listening to this right now because they're about to direct you, let's say sometime in the future, but they're intimidated by you, what do you want to say to them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Because they may be coming to you in a way with kid gloves, and you don't want that.
No, what I think what you want as an actor, unless you know, I mean, I also tell a story against myself, which I think is important, like with Tony Richardson, which is another great story. I remember coming out doing to do a stage play back in 1979, and I was in England. I was just done a football movie called Yesterday's Heroes about soccer player. I was enjoying my time in London, whatever, and I got this call to say from Tony Richardson, who was doing a month's run down in St. Peter. I'll never forget, an totally American cast version of. Is it All's Well? Was it All's Well? Yeah, it's All Well. Is it All Well that ends well? But it was As You Like It. Sorry, As You Like It. And it was all American. And David, he said, "Darling," came on the phone because Tony had this marble phone. Hello, darling, how are you? So I just want to say, I'm doing this. David Carradine had dropped out. And he said, "I'd love you to come and maybe play, Jaques," which is again, he's one of those characters like one off. I said, you know, it's like I've always been fairly I said, great, yeah, I'll come, yeah, it sounds exciting. And it was Bruce Davidson and Sokka Channing playing the lovers, Olivia, and it was great. And an interesting cast, supporting cast, Franklin Seals, who we sadly lost in the AIDS, a great actor. He was in Southern Comfort, remember, with Dorothy Hill, but a terrific actor. And loads of other, and Ron Silver was in it, playing the unfunniest clown in Shakespeare, Touchstone, Ron was a method actor, very much, and a terrific actor, and a terrific guy, but trying to make sense of this unfunny part, because Shakespeare's comedy characters aren't that funny sometimes. They're not.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember coming in, they'd been rehearsing, and I rehearsed I came over, I was the first week, I hadn't been back for a while, American, whatever, and Tony said, "Come up to my house. Can we have a drink on Saturday?" I said, "Sure," and I went up to the house, and he said, what do you think? And we chatted, I'd known him from England, whatever, and we talked, and finally he said, "Now, about Jaques," and I said, as an actor, this wasn't totally a social visit. And I said, I said, "Tony, it's a thing." I said, "There's lots of things I could do." And he said, without pausing in a thought, he said, "Well, anything would be better than nothing, darling, wouldn't it?" And I said, and it was said in a way, I said, "You know something? You're fucking right." I said, I finished my cup of tea. I said, "I'll see you Monday morning." I went straight back to the hotel, and I came in Monday morning, knowing the entire part. It's like, he was right. It's like when directors, and that's nothing to do with directing you, and it's saying something that is kind of to somebody you trust and say, "Come on, kick up the ass, get a little here," instead of just phoning around. And I appreciated that beyond belief. It was the perfect sort of nudge. And I spent that weekend, and I came in on Monday morning. It was like, whoa. And it's like interesting how directors can sense something of somebody.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was thinking like we open in 2 weeks, and no, that's the great, that's the great. What's the line? I think that was Gielgud's line when the method director was directing them in a Shakespeare, and they were doing these exercises and stuff, and then suddenly the guy said, "Have you anything to say, Sir John?" And Sir John said, "Yes, we open in 2 weeks." That was like a perfect answer. Can we get on with it? Can we get? Yes, we open in 2. So Tony's line was like, but it didn't piss me off. It made me go, yeah. I mean, you're open to that, and you're not totally. And it was like saying that was a kick up the ass as an actor, which was a great line,
Ian McShane, this is painful because we have to end. I need like 2 days with you. 2 days.
We should do it again. I'd like to talk, yeah.
Can we?
Of course we can.
That's what I want to hear.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.